Hello, Francesca. Thank you so much for coming today. She's been in digital health. She comes from academic background, clinical trials, business development. I think you've had every role in digital health. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Okay, no, I can introduce myself. No worries. So, my name is Francesca Sernissi. I'm business development manager at Genesis, a medical device manufacturer based in Italy. So, the experience I'm bringing today here is basically the perspective of the European market, basically. And as you know, in Europe, as well as in the US and in other countries, AI companies like also Genesis cannot access patient data directly without undergoing a formal and regulated pathway. So I can bring some experience on this, as I'm working on this sector since 2014, also well before the GDPR privacy policy came into force. So, based on my experience, the most effective approach to patient health data involves, first of all, partnering with the right clinical organization. This is critical, especially in the very beginning. It means identify a public or a private healthcare provider that includes also research among its strategic goal, because having a partner involved in research facilitates as a lot the first steps moving into the access of healthcare patient data. Then, second point is to focus on the clinical pain points of the partners. So first the problem, then the technology. This shift from technology to problem allow the partner to solve the most pressing problems that they have. So the initial value proposition of an AI company is really a solution-oriented value proposition, not a tech-driven one. We cannot sell features. We need to sell solutions to healthcare providers. I would say that the third point, as soon as we are ready to to develop a project with this partner, the third point is to present to the partner a robust experimental protocol. This can be also written directly with the partner or proposed by the company and then sent and shared with the partner so that the partner can validate and further refine the experimental protocol, the study design. This point is critical because it is important to demonstrate the scientific rigor, the transparency in which we propose the study design, which must be focused on the validation of the AI models we want to develop. This is another critical aspect. Validate an AI model. I'm telling this for those who are not so familiar with experimental protocols and study design. So validating AI models means validating their accuracy, so demonstrate the accuracy of the artificial intelligence models we are developing, demonstrate also the safety in the patient perspective and the efficacy we are targeting in solving the problem. Efficacy in solving a problem in the healthcare could mean, for instance, demonstrate improved efficiency by X%, for instance, or the ability of the solution to save time by epsilon%, or the opportunity with the technology, with the solution, to improve a specific outcome or more than one clinical outcome by certain Z%. So this was the third point. Fourth point, this is the last one, I promise. Getting the study protocol approved by an ethical committee. At least in Europe, this is a crucial and mandatory step that shows also seriousness and alignment with compliance standards for the healthcare partnering organization. So the core of the initial value proposition should be trust, as Jose was suggesting. So building trust and allow the company to have enough time to build this trust with the partnering organization. This means demonstrating regulatory expertise and knowledge, allocating appropriate budgets, planning realistic timelines also, because these require time for sure. And if internal resources are limited, we can also try to apply for public research grants, which could be a viable option. In Europe, at least, we have many different grants to support innovative innovation in digital health. And but consider that this second option could be competitive and also time-consuming. In any case, this can be an option.
I wonder, Ruben, did you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, so I was going to add to what Francesca said and ask you one quick follow-up, because actually my daughter, who was studying in US, went to UK to do master's at Cambridge, and she ran into exactly what you're talking about. He was doing an AI ML area, how many approval process he had to go to use the data to finish the research. The program was 1 year. It was so tight because there are bodies and there are people had to be approved. And as you said, there were money available for them. They even gave money, 40,000 pounds to go and do this research. I think that is very well. And another thing you said was also outcome-based. How do you convince the organization and all that? But if you look at interacting with this organization, who do you think the right people to reach out to as a small organization coming out of here, from your point of view, from more regulatory point of view? Who do you think?
Generally speaking, with the healthcare organization, we need to be ready to partner with different stakeholders involved. On a day-by-day work, the study coordinator is the most important one. But of course, a decision maker in the very beginning is important and must be involved. So the principal investigator, typically, that could be a director of a healthcare unit, or the general director or the healthcare director of the hospital. It depends also on the hospital sites. Must be for sure on board, also to ensure that ethical approval can arrive quite smoothly. But then on a day-by-day basis, the study coordinator is the most important stakeholder for company like ours.
Thank you. I think you hit it right there. You need to find these coordinators to take you navigate rather than you just try to figure this out. I think that's a great point. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much, Francesca.
Thank you, Jose.
We're actually on time, which is really good. We'll bring on our next speaker, Tanya. Tanya is Health AI Privacy Expert. You were in a webinar I hosted in May last year, Tanya?
Yeah.
May or June?
Last year, yes.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Thank
You're
you.
the first person I thought we got to get Tanya on. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Tanya Chib. I am an Indian qualified lawyer currently based in the Netherlands, and I advise companies on legal tech matters. So everything from privacy, data protection to AI governance, and now also ethics and building processes for that. And it's a pleasure to be here. Welcome everyone to this webinar. I'm excited to see what we uncover together.
And I have some questions for you. And there was this is kind of like an issue that keeps coming up, is privacy and security. And I think a lot of people are hesitant, or they're having difficulty getting data because of it. But I want to ask you, I wonder if you can give some advice about How should AI project leaders comply with privacy regulations from development to market of AI-based medical devices?
Thank you. Thank you, Jose. That's a great question. So as I see it, I don't see privacy only simply as a legal obligation. I see it also as a direct pathway to building trust and gaining loyalty of your customers. And a short way to do it is to embed privacy as a foundational principle in your product. So before anything begins, before you write one line of code, you conduct a data protection impact assessment. That is a very fancy word for a simple risk assessment where you write down, okay, this is a product we want to build. This is the trajectory we are going to take. We're going to start over here. This is the data we want. This is how we're going to train it. This is what it'll do. This is how it'll be retired. So the whole entire life cycle is charted down in a very fancy document called Data Privacy Impact Assessment. And that gives you all the risks that might come up, at least from a privacy standpoint. You can also build in AI-related questions now, AI governance-related questions, so it will become a more heavy document, which will be very comprehensive, and it tells you what all risks will come up, and you take mitigation steps against it. So you start off on a very sturdy foundation. That's your DPIA. So that's before anything has started. And then you say, okay, we're going to collect this data because you want to build this model, and we're going to train it on such and such data. So then you challenge yourself and you say, we're only going to use data which is really needed for our specific use case. So that is the principle of data minimization. You start with that. Why do you go for the principle of data minimization? Because it reduces, one, your risk of data breach, it reduces your cost of storage and processing of data, and three, it complies with multiple regulations like the GDPR, the CCPA, etc. So once you've done that, you go into the training phase. Before you go into the training phase, you say, okay, we want to get this data now. We know what data we want to get. How do we get it? So you make sure you have the necessary legal qualifications to legally obtain this data. So you ideally get people's permission before you use their data, or you say, okay, we've got a legitimate business interest and we've checked that, we've assessed it, we know we've documented it, and we've got a business interest here, so we're going to use this in this data set. Or you get it from a contract, you buy it from somewhere, and you make sure that either the owners of the data have given their consent for the data to be used for that purpose. So you're just basically being a mindful, aware citizen of the world, nothing too complicated. So you get the data, you've rightfully obtained it, and then you start training your algorithm, your model on that data set. And now, again, you be smart and you say, okay, we've got this data. How can we make sure we are not taking up any extra risks? You can also bring in privacy enhancing technologies such as different, maybe other speakers will talk about it later. So like differential privacy. So you make sure that maybe if there are risks of identifying people in this data set, we take measures to reduce that risk. So you start using privacy enhancing technologies early on. That helps in reducing your privacy risk later on. This is in the use when you're training your data, you're building your model. When you start deploying it, when you start using it, again, as just a responsible citizen of the world and as a company that wants to build trust and wants to build responsible products, you say, okay, we want to inform the users of the products on how their data is going to be used when they are using this product. How will this product that we've put on the market, which is a medical device, which is using patients' data, which is a vulnerable group of people, how are we going to inform them in a manner that they understand, which is not very difficult or legalistic to understand and process, but it's easier. So you have your privacy policies tailored to such people, you're transparent to them, you explain it to them. In case you're going to be using or working with vendors, which you mostly are, you might have Amazon on board, you might use certain cloud providers. You want to make sure you've diligenced them well, you've vetted your vendors, again, a very basic, good business practice, and you have the right kind of agreements in place for them. And obviously, as a company who's building and putting a product on the market, you want to make sure you've got the right security measures in place. You've got your technical and organizational measures in place to ensure that the data is secure. You're treating the data with respect and integrity because it's not yours. What else? Now, this is the use stage. And moving on, as you progress, in case you decide the model needs an update, you're putting a new model on the market, you want to again go back and update your privacy impact assessment to make sure that if there's any new risks that come up because you're using a new model, it is all taken care of, and you have it all written down and assessed in your privacy impact assessment, which you did in the beginning before you started this journey. And I mean, this sounds like a lot of steps, but if you've got the right team on board, which in my experience, I think is the secret sauce to making sure that your product is compatible. And that's what, in my experience, a lot of successful AI medical device companies do, is to make sure they've got a disciplinary team on board. So that is not just legal people, not just privacy people, but a mix of your machine learning engineers, your privacy and security experts, your clinical specialists. So something like what we have in this webinar, who are all working together along with the product manager and seeing the product holistically. And then you don't really miss out not only on the privacy risks or security risks, but maybe also on ethical or reputational, etc. risks. And then you've got a very good product. Thank you. I'm sorry if I took too much time.
No, I think that is wonderful. I can't believe you are a lawyer. I mean, you talked about our AI workflow pipeline, how each stage of it, identifying the problem, identifying all the participant and going through the workflow of training to all that. I think you articulated so well from a business point of view. I think that is the most important thing. What you said to me was, just make sure we articulate why we are doing this, what is our foundational idea, and come from that and explain to them what we are going to do and what we are not going to do. How do you see for the patients, we use their data, or hospital, we use their data to tell them what we will not do with their data, how the negative part of it. That way they get reassured. Yeah. So how do we communicate that?
So the informed consent is what is I think what you're referring to. So I always advise, it's usually a very lengthy document, and these are patients who are going through maybe their own personal struggles at the time. So you want to keep it as simplistic as possible. You ideally would like to have a person who is there, who's also reading it out to them or explaining it, or is there for questions, to have a human touch. And again, I'm a lawyer, but I'm not a big fan of very heavy legalistic text myself. Let's make it basic, practical, pragmatic, and really help. As a medical device company, I think we are here to make an impact and really serve people. So let's do that and focus on the patient and how we can improve their quality, instead of making it a very long document. So really, to answer your question very briefly, is just to make it very clear and have a human touch to say, okay, this is exactly what we're going to do. And also be transparent if you don't know how you will use the data in the future, and communicate that maybe this is going to be used in this field. In case we are going to use it for something else, can we reach out to you? Have that option open.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ruben.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I've got some more questions for you. We're going to have to ask you later. Renate.
Yeah.
Tanya raised the point of data anonymization. And we just happen to have a data anonymization, did I say that right? Data anonymization expert on the panel. Welcome, Renate. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Jose. It's really a pleasure to be here, and it's also really cool to be together with the Golden Triangle girls like Anna, Hakkers, and Tanya Chib, because, as Tanya already referenced, you need a multidisciplinary team. And that's us, the privacy, legal, security expert and anonymization expert, which is indeed a first for you guys. Nice.
Did you introduce yourself just a little more?
Sure. Yeah, I'll be glad to. So my name is Renate. I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm a data scientist in background, and then I specialized myself into a new niche, which is called data anonymization and data de-identification as well, which is super cool because everybody needs it in healthcare, but nobody knows that they need it. So for me, it was also a new field, but it's such a cool place to be in. I think healthcare data really benefits from the right balance of anonymization versus utility. So that's where I'm here, and that's also why I chose this specialty. So yeah, it's cool to be the first data anonymization expert on your panel, but it's also nice to be in this field. Thank you.
SenzMate's panel. Well, by the way, I think we got 120 people.
Wow.
So, pretty good crowd. We've got people like LinkedIn. I've got some questions for you too. I'm not just saying hi. And you know what? When we had this question of normalization comes up so much when people, health AI startups, are trying to get access to data. But I wonder if you could actually point to the negative. What are the big pitfalls do you see in data sharing agreements that create unexpected barriers in AI development later? And I think I'm asking this question is people in healthcare are nervous. I think part of it is because they don't know what could go wrong.
Well, it's a really good question, Jose, and thank you for asking that. I think there are a lot of pitfalls that are there in data sharing agreements or in AI development barriers that can be later on. I can name a few. For example, if you're thinking about anonymization, don't make it overly rigid. So don't freeze it from the start, right? So it's better to have a more dynamic approach, to leave some room and some flexibility. Since you also would update a model or you would update a data set, there are some fine tunings that could be needed. So don't make it like overly rigid. Another pitfall that I see is that people tend to, because they don't know how far they should go with anonymization to make it no longer identifiable. So they would use absolute anonymization, which means that there is no data utility anymore because everything has been stripped off of from the patient side of it. But it's good for risk, so it's no longer risk. But there is a better approach here. There's this risk-based approach, which is called relative anonymization, which leaves room for so much more utility and data usefulness in the future. I also see people forgetting about post-market monitoring, which means that they would not monitor any changes that could affect the AI models, which would lead to a loss in updates or developments or maintenance. For example, data drift, if they don't take that into account. I also see people failure to plan for regular updates and verifications. There are so many things going on in technology. We see everything rising and emerging, right? So, and there are a lot of contexts that are changing. So it's not a one and done project, especially in anonymization. It's something that you have to go over and over and over again and make sure that you have a plan for reconsent needs or patient opt-outs over time as well. And the other pitfall, that's the last one that I will mention, is that I see that people are not documenting it properly. They're not transparent in how their data was collected and anonymized, but be sure that you don't disclose all the sensitive technology anonymization details to avoid an attack based on anonymization reverse techniques, right? Don't do that, but just make sure that you're as transparent as possible within boundaries here. And make sure that you do document everything. I hope that helps.
That did help. Thank you.
I think that's a wonderful way of, because I have been in Silicon Valley and working with large enterprises, not healthcare, but even the large enterprises. Everybody is worried about not because of the personal data, but secrecy. Like, yes, you talked about how you don't want to tell what you are doing or what algorithms and all that. But on the other hand, you have to be honest about what you're doing. Is the best way of is documenting. So when you mention documenting, is that you mean by more internal documents and maintaining, or even sharing that with other healthcare organization who you are getting the data? How much information to share between them and within, at least, like if someone comes and audits it, and you want to say, I did all the right thing, versus proactively sharing. What is the balance there?
Yeah, well, that's also a really good question. Thank you for that one. I think that there should be a balance there, but I think that you at least should document it in a way that you would internally know what you have done properly, and for audit purposes, definitely, so regulatory purposes. And then by sharing that only with regulatory, I understand, but sharing it with others, especially with competitors, I would advise against it. I'm not sure why you would need to do that. But there are some changes in the way people see it. Like there is a European health data space, which is influence everything regarding the sharing and also documenting things in healthcare. So the EHDS, it promotes interoperability and access, and it also requires clear and specific purposes and transparency. So if you want to secondary use your data, especially also for AI trained models, then you need to be transparent there as well, why you would need it. So you would need to document that properly, and that would be really
absolutely, because I think that normally what you are saying is correct, that the time to, like, if you don't do it this, they will keep blocking it. It will take so extended time to get approval and all that. As you said, if you have clear methodology, clear documentation, clear presentation, that shortens the period and the success also, correct?
Yeah, correct, indeed. Yeah, and it would also help you as an organization to get your data in, especially if you're looking for secondary use, to get your data in from the European healthcare health data space, for example. So it would help you if you would do that and be transparent, make sure that your documentation is on the spot.
Absolutely. I mean, I have a friend who works at Meta, and her job is auditing all their codes to make sure they are not using the data from users and all that. I mean, it is not in healthcare, but they are establishing some methodology because of their bad names and all that they got earlier. But the healthcare, as you said, is so critical. Yeah. So
it is, but it's also a field for opportunities here, right? So, I mean, cross-border data sharing in the EU would be helpful if for example, European health data space would be better streamlining that. And there are also harmonization efforts that the EHDS will drive, because everybody has to talk the same language and use the same data dictionaries in the future, right? And that's so helpful if you want to use the data and combine it and make it more rich in the future. And also there will be new technologies, technical and governance architectures as well. So, and that will be done by, for example, the health data access bodies, the HDAPs we call them, and the Dutch HDAP also, I'm part of that one there as well. And they told me that for now it's only EU requests that are allowed, but we will definitely make sure that we follow that to the point where in the future we might be able to open up from the EU to even the US and Meta.
For those audience who's listening to us, and a lot of you most probably are startups or smaller companies trying to get into that. What Renate talked about here is so critical for you. If you can articulate that vision of how you are going to protect the data, how you're going to audit and all that upfront to your partners, customers, and become the thoughtful leaders on that, that gives you another level of validation for you to get also.
Yeah, it would enhance your own trust there, right?
Yep.
So, yeah, I fully agree.
We're 1 minute behind schedule now, guys. So I'm going to be the bad guy. Thank you so much, Renate. Thank you so much. By the way, we're not getting rid of her. We're bringing all the speakers back on at the end, and most of them, not all of them, are coming to the after party. I'm going to bring on our next speaker, Anna.
Hello.
You're the expert on the panel. Thank you so much for coming, Anna.
Happy to be here.
And I was actually reading your post, and I'm like, what is that word? There's all these, I thought I understood security. I started reading your posts, and it's so much more complicated than I thought.
Oh, that's a good reminder to really drop the jargon more. Thank you for saying that.
Oh, no, I don't think, you weren't I think you were commenting on something somebody else was saying.
All right.
It wasn't actually, your post made sense. But I read your comments, other people as you're talking to other security. Do you want to introduce yourself? Sorry, I'm kind of rushing ahead.
Happy to do that. So I'm a third angle in the golden triangle, the cybersecurity part. I help companies to establish comprehensive data security strategy. I'm in healthcare for quite some time. First, I was working in an innovative development team, building new type of data sharing platform based on the latest research for the large-scale Parkinson research project. The past 4-something years, I worked in Philips. I was making sure that the global strategy for data security is developed and also implemented across all business units and core functions. And I think I want to add that AI is quite an interesting topic for me personally, because in cybersecurity, it's introducing quite a lot of changing, and it is about to introduce more. And especially it's influential in the data security field. So happy to be here and, contribute to the discussion.
Thank you, Anna. I have a question. So for healthcare and AI specifically, what fundamental security practices do you think people are overlooking most frequently?
All right. Well, what do I begin with? I think when we talk about fundamentals in healthcare, we need to understand that the environment is quite uniquely challenging, and also it makes it interesting. And there are two specific aspects. One is extremely highly valuable data, and it's not just valuable to the patients, for example, where it's medical. It's also very valuable on the dark markets, on the dark web. It's being sold among the top other data types. On top of it, we have research intellectual property, which is very much sought of by various criminal groups, but also by nation-state attackers. So when we talk about cybersecurity, the foundations is what keeps it together, and that's something that's being often overlooked, unfortunately. But at the same time, that's what cybersecurity teams in healthcare often more busy with, to catch up with the fundamentals. And there's a lot of it, from modern IAM practices to hardening the configurations. But I want to emphasize one particular, which is a data security, obviously, and kind of highlight what is being missed mostly. And I think the core principle here is that, yes, sometimes we implement a bit of encryption in motion, a bit of encryption and rest, but we miss oftentimes the full picture. There is no one really looking on the data flows end to end and making sure that those are really encrypted, that we have all layers of storage encryption. So, for example, I see often that encryption stops at the disk level, but what about OS? What about databases, applications, or even more advanced, the fine-grained encryption in the database fields? And this is something that really can help to minimize data, so it helps not only security, but also privacy. On top of it, we also have practices like data segmentation. That's adjacent to data minimization. There you practically, after you strip all unnecessary data, you split the data by data types, depending on who needs to have access to it and for what purpose, from what devices. So you can apply specific controls. You can apply controls in monitoring, seeing, oh, this is a very unusual data stream. So this is the context that helps you to secure applications. And last but not least, the key management. The key management is something that is often overlooked because it's complicated. There's oftentimes no simple solutions for that, outside of very recent few exceptions. So that's been overlooked historically. But this is the foundational control. What I also want to talk about is specific for AI. And here's the interesting part. When we talk about specifically AI controls, we have even harder situation at the moment. We don't even apply the principles of software engineering oftentimes in AI development. And that's historical again, because ML engineers are not trained as software engineers. The security for them is the afterthought. We oftentimes don't even have code maintainability. And that's the issue. If you look at the reports from the industry, there was hidden layer report recently. 77% of reported companies had a breach in last year that involved AI. So that's a serious concern. And to remediate it is quite straightforward at the moment. We have finally a standard for this. It's ISO 5338. And that really covers this development lifecycle and bids already on existing practices. And the easy way to introduce it is to combine ML engineers with software engineers and let them learn from each other, add security experts to the team. It's really multidisciplinary, also in very technical fields like this. And when I speak about specific issues that are very foundational, it's of course also protect the data pipelines. They are foundational for the AI, and it's specific for healthcare because we often get feed from the outdated legacy systems. They might be corrupted, they might be missing some fields, or they might be even maliciously altered, so which can lead to data model poisoning and other ML type of attacks. And last but not least is the supply chain attacks. And this is a really growing trend at the moment. In ML engineering, we use a lot of artifacts, which means we can sometimes have a pre-trained model, or we can pull data from somewhere, we can use some tools from third parties, and each of those components introduces vulnerability. And that needs to be checked. And we already see that in public repositories like Hugging Face, there have been already poisoned data models. And there have been already successful bounty programs. That's when hackers are hired by companies to attack them on purpose. They have managed to succeed by using such poisoned models. So that's I hope, a wake-up call for everybody working in such teams. And I want to specifically stress that missing foundations that are not specific for ML, because ML security might be very exciting, but missing those basic ones is really leading to more problems because AI, as we see, tends to amplify existing foundational weaknesses. Just a simple example, we use to communicate between, for example, servers, we use oftentimes API. So if you use API in conjunction with LLM, through prompt in engineering or other weaknesses in ML, you can really get access to data that you were not supposed to because your API wasn't configured well, or you can learn more about APIs and attack them later. So just to sum it up, we need to brush up the foundations, both specific to AI and not.
I think, Anna, that was an excellent way you articulated, because one of the things SenzMate does is we have a ML, deep Gen AI team, but then our delivery team is our software team. We make sure, because the technology is research, understood, pipeline is created. But as you said, when it comes to delivering this data, delivering this enterprise level product with clarity, security, and patient safety, you need to make sure you are really bundling with, like, from the database, from accessing the right information and all those point of view. So what we did was, whenever there was people come and ask for a AI ML team to develop something, we always pair them with our software team, so that way the delivery does not compromise on security, quality, all of those. And as you said, the ML engineers are amazing technology guys. Sometimes they lose on the bigger vision of wrapping that around in the solution part of it. And so if you look at that way, when do you think that software and you talked about the foundational architecture, from a development point of view of these ML models and all that, where do you see these guys have to spend time? How do they understand? Another way of asking is, how do we educate these ML engineers to be more mindful of all this?
Yeah, I think it's really working side by side with the software developers and doing periodic reviews together so that they get frequent feedback, because learning theory once doesn't help. it's overwhelming. But if you do it incrementally, step by step, and you really see how your code can be improved, and maybe sometimes do some red teaming exercise, which means attacking whatever that was implemented, that helps to find the vulnerabilities, but also helps to motivate the team members to implement more secure solutions.
You did right. I mean, it is so important. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've got more questions for you, but we're going to have to save them for the after party.
All
Yep.
right.
Now we bring on final speaker, Brian.
Well, thank you all. I mean, this was such an exciting conversation, I must say. I'm like thrilled here because I work in AI in healthcare and life sciences, a consultant. My background's in healthcare. I call myself a former data scientist because I don't really focus that much on data on my day-to-day, but I'm constantly advocating for governance-first approaches with AI. And I consider myself a socio-technical expert that kind of brings together people with the business purpose in healthcare. That means we need to talk about patient centricity, and we need to talk about all these things that really involve ethics and responsible AI. And I've seen in the last year a growing conversation between AI security, privacy, and cyber AI and security. But these domains have been siloed in most organizations and most companies. In fact, I just had a conversation with some CISOs the other night at a small intimate debate event. And it was interesting seeing some of their concerns around their companies that had developed AI governance programs, but felt like it didn't go far enough, right? Because they see the additional risk that AI is introducing, particularly when we start looking at agentic AI workflows now, right? And agentic, of course, 2025 is, the next big thing in a way, but we're introducing a lot more security challenges with agentic workflows. And Anna, I mean, you hit the nail on the head with a few things you said that I was just so excited to hear. One, I'm working on a paper with a collaborator, but really something I thought about just from reading something he wrote just the other day was, we do need to think of prompts the way we treat software, and we need to retire prompts, right? Because they can degrade in models, they can introduce security risks. So you need to treat it just like you would some code that needs to be retired after maybe 2 months or whatever, re-permissioned, things like that, which really are the ML, what I would call ML ops or AI ops, right? So the operational aspects. You mentioned the ML engineers and security engineers working together as teams, but I really think, as we see ops teams develop into these specialties, we'll see hopefully this kind of area of specialty growing and developing. I think there's a great need for it from the challenges I see. Overall, all the speakers today, I think there's 3 words that I'll pull out here and say: transparency, observability, and explainability. Those are the 3 top things we need for AI governance. They're the 3 top things, particularly in healthcare and life sciences, right, that we need. I kind of coined a term myself, made it up, but I'm trademarking it, and I'll write about it soon, but I'm calling it the transparency containment paradox, right? Because we need high levels of transparency for the reasons you talked about: the trust of the end users, trust of patients, trust of healthcare providers, and also people, embracing AI tools in their daily work. We want people to adopt things that are going to improve outcomes, improve workflows, improve healthcare experiences. So transparency is so needed, particularly in, lots of healthcare, lots of life science work is, not as transparent as it should be historically. But we also have this, concomitant need for containment, right? We need to contain some information for IP purposes. We need some aspects of containment to respect privacy and security. And, Renata mentioned some great techniques for data anonymization, de-identification. A lot of those are things that companies have been doing because of GDPR and other regulations in the last few years. But the point that she made, which I thought was so important, is needing that balance. And that's what this transparency containment paradox is about, is we need to find ways to balance it. And that's an ongoing thing, as Renata also said. It's not a one and done. And I think that's what you're hearing from all the speakers today is people really don't understand, appreciate, and kind of discount the work that happens behind the scenes by cybersecurity experts, by privacy-focused people. It's just, it's just happening, and we have a secure thing. Well, that's great. Well, it's lovely. But there's a heck of a lot of work that goes into this that is not seen. And, for us, we need to talk about that more because we need governance to be centered in the conversation around AI moving forward, particularly, in any highly regulated industry, high-risk industry, but in healthcare and drug development and other life science purposes where use cases for AI. This is just critical. And, I think I really loved Tanya's explanations as well around, really using privacy enhancing technology, having differentiated policies here, because that's the way to manage the governance. If you have complicated use cases, they change daily, right? You may integrate a new data flow because there's newly approved drugs, right? And so you're ingesting new treatment data, essentially, and protocols. So, this is constantly moving. Every enhancement we make can increase the threat matrix. And, we need to evolve, but we also need to talk about why it's important, the work that goes into the budgets. The good thing about doing this type of work is it actually can help minimize your overall cost if you're doing good governance and managing that from end to end, right? You can control cost a lot better, particularly with agentic AI, RAG integrations. But at the same time, you need the budget to be able to do this work, right? And I think that's another challenging conversation as we expand teams to do things like AI ops and ML ops, is who's paying for this? And this is a conversation in large, enterprises, of course, which, not everyone necessarily cares about or gets involved in. But I think that those are all really important conversations, and the way to kind of make AI governance something that's not scary, something to be feared, but something that is absolutely essential to good business practices. That's where we're at right now. That's what we need in 2025 and moving forward. And, again, think of the three most important things here: transparency, observability, and explainability. If we do all of those three things well, we're already ahead of the competition in terms of the products we're developing. We're serving our customers, whether those customers are third-party entities or those customers are patients, those customers are, healthcare providers. We're serving them well because we've done what we need to do to make their systems secure as possible, respectful of privacy, and very something that we can trust as people, as consumers ourselves, and that have positive social impact.
And listen to that reminded something. And someone said to me, the end users, they don't put their trust in the technology. They put their trust in the people standing behind it.
Exactly.
They want to know that there are human beings who are professional, who are dedicated, who know what they're doing, who are going to step in and take responsibility if something goes wrong. And that's where the trust comes from. And they don't need to understand. I don't need to understand the technology. I just need to know that they're good people that are there, that have my back, that if something does go wrong, they're going to step in, or they're working hard to make sure nothing goes wrong. And thank you so much for that, Brian. And by the way, we're not getting rid of Brian. Maybe in the after party. But we're wrapping this up. That sounds a bit. We're ending the event in 5 minutes. I'm going to bring all speakers for a final word, and then we are going to the after party. And just in case, I know a lot of people have joined late, we are having an after party. You have the option. It's going to be on Zoom meetings. It's not recorded, so you can say what you want. And you're not going to appear in some replay somewhere. But you have to go to the Zoom link. There's going to be the Zoom links in Google Chat. I'm going to put a chat here. I know we've got two audiences here. Thank you, by the way. I think we've had over 130 people come live. I know you don't all see each other, but you're in different places. And there's putting them in the chat. And I'm wondering if Ruben, come on and give a final word.
Thanks, Jose. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, it was an amazing panel with, I love the way all of us came together and most of the panelists able to connect the dots. We always talked at SenzMate. When we started SenzMate about 13, 14 years ago as a small enterprise out of a university coming out, and we were trying to do this company, and we thought about it. One of the concepts that time, there was no generative AI, there wasn't all these AI part of it. Our thing was connecting the dots. What that meant was we leverage IoT. There are so many devices in the world, and then it evolved into machine learning. And then in around 2018, 2019, we got into AI. Actually, before even Gen AI and all Chat GPT and all that, SenzMate, we were building a product with our partners, our customers worldwide on healthcare, agriculture, industrial, various aspects of it, looking at all of these different, smart, data-driven solutions. Our real-time monitoring system. So we have one side, we can take all these data and train data and look at it. The other side, we can look at the real-time monitoring. For example, fall detection for a patient, or looking at patients after surgery. All of these has been developed into our platform. So we have done monitoring system, predictive analytics, and connected medical devices. So as I said, we are IoT, embedded engineering capability. We are about 150 to 160 people now. In that, about 30 or 40 of them are hardware embedded engineering, but more than 100 of them are AI, ML, machine learning engineers. We have worked on so many different patient care, hospital operations, and how do you reduce the cost? Earlier we talked about it, as well as ensuring precision, improving the patient output, efficiency, all of those. So from our point of view, we are so happy to have all of you panelists and all of those. In the meantime, we are here to help partner with anyone worldwide to take your idea, take your the product need, and take it to a MVP or productization. So please reach out to us and come and talk to us in the after party. And we have so many of our colleagues in the available to reach out. And let's do something great for the community, great for the humanity, while we make some money.
Thank you. Renate, final word.
Yeah, I think everybody has said so much good things, but for me, it would be team up to win, right? So make sure that you are not doing it on your own, but find the right people, get the experts on the team, and make sure that you're doing it. Yeah.
Thank you. Francesca, final word.
Yes. Okay. I think the early stage risk in accessing health data could be mitigated by aligning with the institution with a valuable long-term collaboration to co-develop evidence-based protocol and support ethical and regulatory compliance. Just to summarize.
Thank you. Tanya, final word.
Yeah, thank you, Jose. It was a pleasure to be here. If anybody is looking for any kind of support with any legal tech regulation in the EU, whether it is the Data Act, which governs IoT, or of course the GDPR, the EU AI Act, or the General Product Regulation, you can always find me, or also you can find our work from the Golden Triangle, that is Renate and Anna. We do a lot of publications on LinkedIn just as a part of education. Feel free to reach out, DM us if there's any question, anything we can help with, and see you at the after party. Thank you.
Thank you. Brian, final word.
Well, final word. I left Francesca off my summary earlier, and I meant to point out the fact that, the IRB approval or an ethical body approval and incorporating that kind of experimental protocol into the early process is very great learning, an important part of the process for people that are just starting out and developing new things that they want to develop within a healthcare setting. Or within these settings, yes, we should treat them as experimental, and all the consent and things you would do as if it was a clinical trial need to be done. And, frankly, research institutions are used to IRB protocols. And so for AI ethical bodies to approach it in the same kind of way is something that should be a kind of level of comfort for a research hospital or organization, frankly.
Anna.
Recording in progress.
Go ahead, Anna.
Thanks. I'll make it super short. It was exciting to be here. I think good stuff shared. I learned a lot from you guys. Thank you so much. And yeah, indeed, if you want to hear more content on privacy, anonymization, or data security, follow Renate, Tanya, or me. We're always happy to help. And don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need any help with data security.
Great. Thank you. All right. See you guys, everybody, soon in the other one. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.